Hi, I'm Steph, and this is video number 3 for me. Video number 1 was backwards. Video number 2 lasted for nearly an hour. It was so long that my voice went out of sync towards the end. So, video number 3 I have high hopes for. We'll try and keep things short and sweet. So, I wanted to post something that specifically looked at drawing. I've been asked by a few people if I could post something drawing related. A few people have asked me about shading as well, so hopefully today we'll incorporate bits of that. As far as subject matter, I posted an image of this photo. It's a photo that I took about 1991 when I was roaming around Egypt, and I posted this on my Facebook page. And what I said was, if anybody wants to use this photo in any way creatively, whether they want to draw it, paint it, I don't know, do whatever with it, then they could do. And while I'm talking about Facebook, it is lovely to see all the artwork that people are doing, and thank you for sending them to me. Please continue to do so, because it is so nice to see everybody having a go. Kids, adults, lots of people. So I thought that as I did post this photograph, I love to draw figures, and it's quite a complicated little image. It'll be quite a nice one to draw. I may do something a bit more creatively with this at a later date, and I may video that, I may not. So drawing, people ask me lots about drawing. You know, how do I improve my drawing? My stock answer usually is the first thing that you need to improve before you kind of get into the drawing is you just need to be able to look a bit better. And I know that sounds a bit strange, but boy, your brain can play nasty tricks with you. You know, it starts to tell your hands and your fingers to make shapes that aren't really there, and there are certain things that you can be drawing that are worse than others, which is why I thought this picture would be quite nice, because it is full of figures, it's full of people, it's full of recognizable shapes, it's full of things that your brain knows what they are, and to improve your drawing, boy, do you really need to look. So that's why I thought I'd give this one a go. What I've also done to make life a little bit easier, just because I was asked about shading as well, and you know, to kind of put it in its simplest form, you know, shading an image like this, you need to know where all the tones are in an image like this, and to make life a bit easier, I've gone black and white. As soon as you get rid of all the colour, you can instantly see what is lighter or darker than what. So it does make it easier. So let's get rid of that. I'm going to run through equipment as well. I love to draw with ink pens. I'm not going to do today. So equipment wise today, I have got a range of pencils. I've gone for things that are quite soft, quite dark. So I've got a B pencil here, and I've got a couple of 6B pencils also. I have a charcoal pencil. I have a stick of charcoal. I have a chunky sort of graphite stick, and a few other little things that I've got. I've got one of these little blending, little rubber kind of brushes, little blending stick. I may use it, I may not. I quite like to I use fingers quite a lot. I have a bit of chalk, which again I may or may not use. It depends how we get on. A little knife for when I snap these pencils, which I'm bound to do. And that's about it, really. Before I start, a few things I need to say. Oh, I have some squidgy kind of putty rubber also. I think drawing is a lot about confidence. I think a lot of art is about confidence, and my big advice would be, don't get too precious, don't get too scared. Leap in, have a go, try and be confident. If it works, great. If it doesn't, you know, you're only wasting a tiny bit of paper. I tend to find that as soon as I am a little bit sort of scared or wary of making marks, things don't go great. So that's why I have specifically picked fairly soft, dark pencils that will make pretty hefty marks on this piece of paper. You know, you could start with an HB pencil, which makes very soft little marks on there. You could approach this quite carefully so that, you know, all your mistakes aren't very visible. I quite like that scary element of making marks, and it just makes me concentrate, which is why I like drawing with ink pen as well. But I think at a later date I'll post some ink drawing videos also. So shall we start? So I am going to leap straight in with a 6B pencil. I can see it. There we go. I think at some point I'll pin this up here. You should still be able to see it. In fact, shall I do it right now? Yes. So a bit of tape. And we'll go up there. I think you can just see that, you won't be able to see me taping it, but you can still see most of the image. So I like to work quickly. I like to put marks on my paper quite quickly. So I'll say less and I'll do more drawing. So I'm going to start with this chap here, and you know, I'm trying to look at him as just an interesting shape, just to sort of block him in, and I will make mistakes initially. You know, those canes that he's holding there, they're lovely. Ideally I want to get all these in, so I may have done him too big. We'll see. His arm angles up to here, and his head is angled up that way. Right, so his hand sort of is right in the centre of this chap here. His hand also is on a level with his head, which I think I've got that there. As I'm putting this together, and I also say that images where you've got quite a lot going on, you know, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's about 6 or 7 figures here. There's all these sort of hairy woolly sheep as well. There's lots of really nice negative spaces, and they are a great way of getting from A to B. So already I can see that if I was to start putting this figure in here, you know, I might be a bit too close. We'll stick it in anyway. So he is quite tall. I'm not going to worry too much about doing any features on his head. Again, he might be quite thin. And then just looking at the negative space to the next guy here, I think he's slightly more in the foreground, so scale wise he's a little bit bigger. I'm running up to his shoulder. His shoulder here is just about level with that guy's chin. And yeah, he's definitely more in the foreground because his head is a lot bigger. And we'll go, his shoulder sort of drops down ever so slightly from the left hand one. And then we go all the way down here. Right, we've then got this girl in here. What I'm going to do is I'm now moving on to the back end of this strange little woolly sheep. And as I'm moving down, I've got the head of this one, and that gives me that little negative space where the girl is. And her head fits in just where the shoulder is of the chap that I've just done. My image is not printed brilliantly, but that's all down to my printer. Right, I'm now moving on to this guy here, who's got that lovely sort of scarf, and I can just see where his arm, I guess that's his arm, and that angles slightly, so I'm a bit wrong there. I may have got a bit carried away here, so I'll just bring that out slightly. And we'll continue going down. Right, I'm way out there, because if I go down to here, so the back of that sheep is there. And just looking at that gap from the sheep up to that arm, that is way long, so something is quite out there. So we shall, I don't mind so much if things aren't brilliant. I like to see, it's almost like, you know, I quite like to see my workings out on my drawing. And for me, the more marks I put on a piece of paper, the easier it is for me to see what's right and wrong. This is just how I like to work. Some people are very careful. So I'm going to stick the back leg of that sheep in there. Again, there's a little sort of negative space in between those legs. I need to be conscious of how thick that is as well. That looks quite thin. I might be wrong there. So let's bulk it out a little bit. Right, and this leg here that I'm doing there, if I was to sort of run this line right up, that leg is just about the back end of this guy's head, which I've not actually put in. So run this down here. I was right actually. And then I've got this bit down here. That's not too bad. And then, you know, drawing the shadows on the floor will help. So I'm going to continue drawing those. I've got one here. Those shadows nicely bring me to this guy's canes or sticks or whatever they are. Again, looking at this, I'm not bang on here, but I'm not far off. That takes me right to that. I need to just check my angle there. I'm not bad. So hand, where's this guy's hand? Right, probably about here. I'm not worrying about drawing fingers or anything, I'm just looking at the blocky shape of that hand gripping those sticks. And as soon as I know that some things are okay, I can start to make a few heavier marks. So there's a lovely fold in his robe there. That takes me up to his sleeve. I don't know if robes have sleeves, but... And that goes up there. So again, that folds down. More lovely folds. I love drawing folds in fabric. Again, really nice. If you want to improve your shading, scrunch up a napkin or something and have a look at all the creases in it. It's really lovely to draw. And this robe down here, there's some really nice shading in that. I'm not bad with this guy. I think his back is a little bit more arched than I've got it. Where's that now? Moving my way a little bit. So this bit sort of folds under, and then that's where his back curves round. And That is where all the fabric of that robe scrunches around. Really weird as well. You know, I am sort of commentating on this just because it, you know, it makes the videos a little bit more interesting than just silently watching me scribble and draw. Because I am commentating on it, again, that gets me to concentrate a lot more, because I'm describing exactly where I am on this picture. And I know it may be a little bit bizarre if you were to all sit at home and talk your way through your drawings, but try and do that silently in your head, because it really helps. Because as soon as you lose concentration and as soon as your mind starts to drift off, that's when your brain takes over, and you before you know it, you've drawn all kinds of shapes. So let's get back to this. What I might do in a minute, I'm going to start blocking in a bit of the shading, and then we'll see where we are time wise, because I don't want another epic hour-long video. I've no idea where the time went on that one. It's a very strange little head scarf that this guy's got on. So this obviously is the guy's head, and you know, because that is his head, automatically my brain suddenly wants to draw eyes and a nose and a mouth, and again, that's when things start to go wrong. So just look at what is on the piece of paper, just look at what you can see, and try and break things down into the simplest forms. So just because these sticks or canes are straight lines, I shouldn't be able to go too far wrong with those. And those canes that he's holding, they do take me into this guy's neck. They should tell me exactly where that neck is. So his neck angles up into here, and then it just folds over into his chin, and then the next thing I can see a tiny little shadow here. I can see a tiny little shadow for where his eyes are. He's got his hairline down here, which again is quite dark, and then the back of his neck is quite dark also. I don't want to do too much more. And then onto his other arm, which again, look where it is in relation to everything else. What I might do is I might just shade that hand in, because that hand is quite dark. And a few of these canes are quite dark as they disappear around his neck. So I think his arm starts from about here, and you know, it does angle up quite sharply. I could shade his arm in as well, because it is fairly dark, but it's not as dark as this hand here. So we'll just shade it in. His head is also quite dark. There's a slight little highlighted area where I think the sun is catching his chin. That head is quite dark. It's not as dark as his, sorry, the headscarf is quite dark. It's not as dark as his face though, his skin. So I need to go darker. And before I get to his hand, one of the things that I do want to indicate is, just because I thought it was really lovely when I saw this, when I took this photograph, it's like stepping back in time, to see all these Egyptian sort of farmers trading the sheep. But then when I look really closely, this guy here, he'd got like a really flashy expensive watch on, which I can just see the wrist strap of it. Hands, people always struggle with hands. You know, I am just looking at what sort of shape that is making. And finger wise, all I can see, two little lines. I'm not going to do too much else. The less I can do with that area, the better, because as soon as I start to draw fingers again, things will go wrong. So before I move on, let's just finish this guy in the corner by sticking a bit of this shadow in on the floor. So that goes down there, and then that's there. The shadow is a lot darker closer to him, and in fact, right at the bottom where that robe hits the floor, it is really dark down there. And gradually, as the shadow sort of creeps a little bit further into the sunlight, it gets a lot lighter. The other kind of big tip I would give you for drawing is, and hopefully this comes across when I'm doing this video, what a lot of people do is, one of the mistakes they do is that they spend so much time looking at their actual drawing and they're hardly looking at their subject matter. Ideally it should be the other way around. You know, your eyes should be spending more time up here, because you know, you need to get as much information into your brain as possible by looking at it. So yeah, just kind of look at this a lot more. That's what we're doing time wise. 22 minutes, crikey me. I will whiz through a tiny little bit more of this, and then what I'll do is I'm going to stop it and I will I'll run through it a little bit more. So I'm not going to talk, I'm going to do a bit of drawing, and I might speed it up. Okay, so before I stop the video, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this last figure in. And the reason I've saved him until last is, well, two reasons really. One is because he's stood on his own, which makes him a little bit trickier to do. The fact that I've blocked in all the other characters, and I know they're all quite sketchy at the minute, but I do work like this, and then I take my time and I build it up. I will do a lot of that after the video's finished. I can use all of these as a nice little reference point to make sure that he is the right scale, the right size, and the fact that he fits the picture the way he should. So again, I'm looking at negative spaces in between these two figures, and him and the sheep as well. Things like, you know, this hand here, that hand is just about on a level with the arm of this robe. I need to make sure that there's enough gap. I might be a little bit close here, so let's stick that in again. So I can just start with that hand. That hand is about there, and then his robe goes up, and you know, look at angles of things as well. That robe drops all the way down there to pretty much where the last end leg of that sheep is, and and then you've got all the sort of ups and downs of that robe. You can just see his feet at the bottom. You can't actually see much of the shape. It is just a dark little area in there. Go back up here to the hand. He's got his other hand here, you know, fingers are splayed out. The hand's slightly higher up, so it's going to fit in here somewhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to block the end of his robe where his hand comes out. There's a little sort of dark area where the thumb is, and then again, fingers only go to the edge of the robe, they don't go any further. So I'm just going to shade the back of his hand, and I'm just going to indicate a tiny bit of those fingers. As I say, I don't want to really go too mad with that. And then I would continue further up, just looking at angles and shapes. So there's some lovely folds in this robe that do take me eventually to his neck and his head, but just to check, you know, top of his shoulder is on a par with, it crosses where that guy's nose is, and that guy's nose is going to be up here somewhere, so I need to be higher. So that's where he's going to fit, and then his head, that lovely sort of curve where his headscarf is, and you know, you can see a tiny bit of the shape of his head, and then you back down to his neck again, and most of his head is in shadow, apart from a tiny little bit where the sun is shining on the bridge of his nose. And then you can just see the back end of his shoulder, and then you back down to his robe again, which brings you down to his arm. So I'm going to stop things now, and I'd quite like to continue, but as I say, we're probably already at half an hour. So I'm going to stop, I'm going to work it up, and I'll show you the end product, and I hope that helps. So yeah, there you go. As before, any comments, stick them on this YouTube video. Hopefully my voice is in sync and things aren't backwards. Half an hour is not too bad. And if anybody does give this a go, send me your images, and as before, I will stick a link to my Facebook page down in the bit down the bottom. So there you go. See you soon. Bye bye. Have fun. Be creative.